I knew something was wrong the moment they asked me to come. That it wasn't the words. They sounded casual, almost harmless. Just a drive, they said. We'll get some air. But something in the way they looked at each other before I answered made my chest tighten. Still, I said yes. I wish I could say I was forced, or that I didn't understand what I was doing, but the truth is, I did. That I was already in a relationship. Not a perfect one, but real. Or at least it used to be. Somewhere along the way, the warmth faded. Conversations turned into silence. Messages became shorter. Nights felt longer. I started feeling invisible in my own life, like I was just existing beside someone instead of being loved by them, and then these two came along. That I had known them casually. Not close, not important, just familiar faces that slowly started paying more attention to me than anyone else had in a long time. One of them talked more, always smiling, always saying the right things at the right time. The other barely spoke, but he watched everything, like he understood more than he let on. Together, they created this strange energy I couldn't quite define, but I didn't pull away from it either. That night, when they asked me to go with them, I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew I shouldn't. My phone was in my hand. I remember staring at my partner's name on the screen, thinking about calling, thinking about choosing differently, but I didn't. Instead, I got into the car.at first. It felt normal. Music played softly. The city lights blurred past us. No one said much, but it wasn't uncomfortable, just quiet in a way that felt intentional. I sat in the back seat, watching the reflection of their faces in the mirror. The one driving kept glancing at me, like he was checking if I was still there. The other one just stared out the window, lost in something I couldn't see. That I told myself it was nothing. Just a drive. Just a distraction. Something to break the routine that had been suffocating me for months. But then the road changed, the lights started disappearing. Buildings turned into empty stretches of darkness. The smooth road became uneven, and the sound of the tires shifted, louder somehow in the silence. I noticed it before anyone said anything. Where are we going? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Relax, the driver said, smiling slightly. You'll like it. That didn't answer anything. That I looked out the window again, but there was nothing to see anymore. Just shadows and the occasional flicker of distant light that disappeared as quickly as it came. My phone showed no signal. I checked it twice, then locked it, pretending it didn't bother me, but it did. Something felt off. Not dangerous, at least not yet, but wrong in a way I couldn't explain. The kind of feeling you ignore because you don't want to ruin the moment, even when deep down, you know you should listen to it. Minutes passed. Or maybe longer. Time started to feel strange, like it was stretching and folding in on itself. No one spoke. The music had stopped at some point, and I didn't even notice when. That I shifted in my seat, suddenly aware of how quiet everything had become. Are we close? I asked. Almost, the quiet one said, his voice low but clear. That it was the first time he had spoken in a while, and something about it made my stomach tighten. The car slowed down, gravel crunched beneath the tires as we turned off the main path, if you could even call it that. Trees surrounded us now, tall and dark, their branches forming shapes that looked almost unnatural in the dim light. The headlights barely cut through the thickness of it, and then the car stopped. For a second, no one moved. That I waited for someone to explain, to laugh, to say it was just a place to hang out, but nothing came. The engine turned off, and the sudden silence pressed in around us. This is it, the driver said. That I opened the door slowly, stepping out into the cold air. It felt heavier out there, like the forest was holding its breath. I wrapped my arms around myself, looking around, trying to make sense of where we were. There was nothing. No houses. No roads. No signs of anyone else, just trees. Endless, dark trees. Why here? I asked, my voice quieter now. You'll see, he replied. That I turned to look at them both, standing there like they belonged in this place more than I did. That same look passed between them again, quick, silent, but enough to make something inside me shift. That's when it hit me that I didn't know them. Not really, and whatever this was, it wasn't just a drive. A chill ran down my spine, sharper than the cold around me. I took a small step back, My instincts finally starting to speak louder than my curiosity that I should have listened earlier, because standing there, surrounded by darkness, with no way to call for help and no clear path back, I realized something I couldn't ignore anymore, that I shouldn't have come. The silence didn't end when he answered. If anything, it settled deeper, heavier, like something had finally surfaced and refused to go back down. I thought hearing, "I don't know," would push me to react, to demand clarity, to feel something sharp and immediate. But it didn't. It left me suspended in a space that felt worse than the truth, because uncertainty has a way of stretching pain. That I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse him. I just looked at him, waiting, hoping he would correct himself, that he would realize what he had just said and take it back. But he didn't. He just sat there, like he had already said enough. That's when I understood something I had been avoiding. People don't hesitate when they're sure. And the fact that he couldn't give me a simple answer meant that somewhere along the way, he had already started letting go. What does that mean? I asked quietly. He rubbed his hands together, avoiding my eyes for a moment before finally looking back at me. It means, things haven't felt the same for a while. There it was. Not a confession, not yet. Just the beginning of one. That I felt a tightness in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. For you, or for us? He hesitated again, and that hesitation was starting to feel familiar in a way I didn't like. For me, he said, that should have made it easier. At least it was honest. But instead, it made everything heavier. Because now it wasn't about misunderstanding or miscommunication. It was about something inside him that had already shifted, something I hadn't been part of. I thought back to all the moments I had questioned myself, all the times I told myself I was overthinking. The late replies, the distracted conversations, the way he seemed present but not really there. None of it felt small anymore. How long? I asked. He didn't answer right away. His silence this time felt like he was measuring the damage his words could do. I don't know exactly, he said, but it sounded like he did. A few months, maybe longer. Months, the word echoed in my mind, louder than anything else he had said. Because months meant this wasn't sudden. It wasn't a bad week or a rough phase. It was something that had been growing quietly while I was still trying to hold everything together. Why didn't you say anything? My voice came out softer than I expected. He let out a breath, almost like he had been waiting for that question. I didn't want to hurt you. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. So this is better? He didn't respond. And that silence felt like an answer too. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could feel everything shifting, piece by piece, like the version of our marriage I believed in was slowly being replaced by something I didn't recognize. Then I asked the question I wasn't sure I wanted the answer to: is there someone else? This time, the silence wasn't hesitation. It was confirmation. He looked away, and that was enough. He didn't need to say it. The way his posture changed, the way his jaw tightened slightly, it all told me what I already knew, but I needed to hear it. Just tell me the truth, I said. He nodded slowly, like he had accepted that there was no way around it anymore. There's someone I've been talking to. Talking, the word felt carefully chosen. Controlled. Safe. How long? I asked again, even though I wasn't sure I wanted a number. A couple of months. The same time frame. The same quiet overlap between when I started feeling something was wrong and when something actually was. Does she know about me? He nodded. Yes. That hurt more than I expected. Not because I cared about her, but because it meant this wasn't hidden in the way I imagined. It existed openly in a space where I was the only one unaware. And what is it? I asked. Just talking. He hesitated again, and I felt something inside me sink. It didn't start as anything, he said. It just happened. That wasn't an answer. It was an excuse. I looked at him, really looked this time, trying to understand how someone I had shared so much with could sit in front of me and feel like a stranger. You smiled at your phone, I said quietly. You stopped talking to me. You checked out long before you admitted anything. That doesn't just happen. He didn't argue. He didn't deny it. And somehow, that made it worse. It wasn't supposed to go this far, he added, like that would soften the reality, but it didn't. Because it already had that, I leaned back slightly, feeling a strange calm settling in. Not peace, not acceptance. Just clarity. The kind that comes when everything you've been questioning finally lines up. All the small things I ignored suddenly made sense. The distance, the silence, the way he became someone I couldn't quite reach anymore. It wasn't in my head. It was real, and the hardest part wasn't even the fact that there was someone else. It was realizing that he had been building something with her while letting what we had slowly fall apart. You could have told me, I said, more to myself than to him. I know, he replied, but there was no urgency in it. Just acknowledgement. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about timing. About all the moments where the truth could have been spoken but wasn't. About how I had been trying to fix something he had already stopped choosing. That I looked down for a moment, then back at him, and for the first time, I didn't feel confused. I wasn't asking the wrong question, I said quietly. That he frowned slightly, like he didn't understand. I just asked it too late. And as those words settled between us, I realized the truth hadn't just come out in his answers. It had been there all along, in everything he didn't say before. Something in the air changed after that, and this time I couldn't ignore it. They didn't look at me the same way anymore. The warmth, the attention, the subtle pull that had brought me here, it was gone. Just like that. Replaced by something colder. Detached. Like I had shifted from being the center of their focus to something irrelevant. The driver walked a few steps away, lighting a cigarette, the faint glow briefly illuminating his face before fading again into the dark. He didn't even glance at me. The quiet one stood still, hands in his pockets, staring into the forest like I wasn't even there. That silence came back, but now it felt suffocating. That I cleared my throat, trying to steady myself. We should probably head back. No response. That I took a step closer to the car, my heartbeat picking up. It's late, I added, forcing a casual tone. I have to get home. The driver exhaled smoke slowly, then finally spoke. Why the rush? His voice wasn't soft anymore. That it wasn't comforting either, just flat. I should go, I said, my words starting to stumble over each other. It's fine, but I think I stayed long enough. The quiet one let out a low breath, almost like a quiet laugh, but there was no humor in it. You wanted this, he said. The words hit harder than they should have. I didn't say I didn't, I replied quickly, defensive now. I just want to leave. Another silence, then the driver flicked the cigarette to the ground, crushing it under his shoe before turning toward me. There was something different in his eyes now. Not anger. Not even annoyance, just a lack of interest. That's funny, he said slowly. You didn't seem like you wanted to leave earlier. My chest tightened. That doesn't mean I have to stay. He shrugged slightly, like it didn't matter either way. But something about that made it worse, because it meant I didn't matter. That I looked between them, trying to read something, anything, that made sense. But there was nothing there anymore. No charm. No connection. Just distance, and then I heard it. A low murmur. Not from them speaking to me, but between them, too quiet to fully catch, but enough to make my stomach drop. Told you, not worth, should've. The words blurred together, but the tone didn't. Dismissive. I felt a wave of heat rush through me, followed by something colder, sharper. Regret hit me all at once, not just for what had happened, but for everything that led me here. Every moment I ignored my instincts. Every excuse I made for myself. What did you say? I asked, my voice tighter now. They didn't answer. Instead, the quiet one finally turned toward me fully, his expression calm but distant. You should relax, he said. You're overthinking it. Overthinking? I almost laughed, but it came out hollow. I'm in the middle of nowhere with two people I barely know. I think I have a right to think. The driver smirked faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. You trusted us enough to come. That again, that same line, twisted differently now. I made a mistake, I said, more firmly this time. And I want to fix it. So let's just go. For a second, I thought they might argue. Or refuse, but instead, they exchanged another one of those looks, silent. Quick. Unreadable, and that scared me more than anything they could have said, because it felt like I wasn't part of the conversation that my pulse started racing. I took another step back, closer to the car, my hand brushing against the cold metal like I needed to confirm it was real. "Give me the keys," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll drive myself if you don't want to." The driver let out a short laugh. "It's not that simple." "What does that mean?" He didn't answer directly. "You don't even know the way back." "I don't need to. There's a road, we just follow it." "In the dark," he replied. "Out here?" I hesitated, just for a second, but that was enough for him to notice. "You see," he said quietly. "You're not thinking clearly." My breathing got heavier. "Not panicked yet, but close. I don't feel safe here," I admitted. The words hung in the air, heavier than anything before. For the first time, the quiet one's expression shifted slightly. "Not concern. Not sympathy, just awareness." "Safe," he repeated. "We didn't do anything to you." But that was the problem, that it wasn't what they had done, that it was what they weren't doing anymore. No reassurance. No effort to make me comfortable. No acknowledgement of how wrong this felt now, just distance, and silence. That I realized then that I had completely misread everything. The attention. The interest. The connection, that it was never real, and now, I was stuck in a place where nothing felt predictable anymore. My thoughts started racing faster, jumping from one possibility to another. What if they didn't take me back? What if this wasn't just a bad decision, but a dangerous one? I tried to calm myself, but it wasn't working. "I'm leaving," I said, more to convince myself than them. That I turned slightly, scanning the direction we came from, trying to remember the path. But everything looked the same. Dark. Endless. Disorienting. Behind me, I heard movement, slow footsteps. That I froze. "Where are you going?" the driver asked, his voice closer now. That I didn't turn around immediately. "Away." "That's not a good idea." "Neither was coming here," I shot back. Silence followed again, but this time it felt heavier. Tense. Like something was about to break. That I turned back slowly, meeting their eyes again, and in that moment, it became clear that I couldn't rely on them, not for help. Not for safety. Not for anything. Whatever control I thought I had in this situation was gone. That a sharp realization cut through the panic. That if I wanted to get out of this, I couldn't wait for them to decide anything. That I had to see. My heart pounded louder in my chest, every instinct finally aligning into one clear thought. That I had to leave. No hesitation. No second guessing, because staying here, even for one more minute, felt like the biggest mistake I could make, and I had already made too many. That I took a slow step back, then another, keeping my eyes on them, my body tense, ready to move the second I saw an opening. I had to get out, I whispered under my breath, no matter what it took. I didn't wait for them to say anything else. The moment I felt even the smallest gap between us, I turned and moved. Not fast at first, just enough to create distance without triggering a reaction. My heart was pounding so loudly it felt like it would give me away, but I kept going, step by step, forcing myself not to look back immediately. The ground was uneven, branches snapping softly under my feet. Every sound felt amplified. Every second stretched longer than it should have. I kept my breathing controlled, trying not to panic too early, because I knew if I lost control now, I wouldn't think clearly. Then I heard it. "Hey." His voice, closer than I wanted. That I didn't stop. "Where do you think you're going?" he called out again, sharper this time. That was it. That I ran. All the hesitation I had before disappeared in an instant. My body moved before my thoughts could catch up, pushing forward through the darkness, ignoring the way the ground dipped and shifted beneath me. I didn't care where I was going anymore, just that I was getting away from them. Behind me, I heard movement. Faster now. They weren't just standing there anymore. Panic surged through me, raw and overwhelming, but it fueled me instead of freezing me. I pushed harder, my lungs burning, my legs straining as I tried to keep balance in a place that felt designed to slow me down. Branches brushed against my arms, sharp and cold. My foot slipped once, sending me stumbling forward, but I caught myself before falling completely. I didn't dare stop. That I couldn't. Every second mattered. The darkness was disorienting. I couldn't tell if I was moving in the right direction or deeper into nowhere. But stopping wasn't an option. Going back wasn't an option. Nothing behind me felt safe anymore. their voices echoed faintly now, unclear, distant, but still there. Still following that, I kept running until my chest tightened so much it felt like I couldn't breathe properly anymore. My steps slowed without permission, my body forcing me to ease down no matter how much I wanted to keep going. That I bent forward slightly, trying to catch my breath, my ears straining for any sound behind me. Nothing. No footsteps. No voices, just silence again, but this time, it wasn't the same silence. That it wasn't controlled. It wasn't heavy in the same way that it felt, empty. That I stayed still for a moment, listening carefully, trying to decide if they had actually stopped or if they were just waiting. My mind ran through every possibility, each one worse than the last. Then, faintly, I saw it. A dim glow in the distance, not bright, not clear, but enough to break through the darkness. A road. Or at least something close to one. Hope hit me so suddenly it almost didn't feel real. My body reacted before I could question it, moving toward the light, slower now but steady, careful not to lose sight of it. The closer I got, the clearer it became. The uneven ground started to flatten. The trees thinned out. And then finally, I stepped out onto a narrow stretch of road, empty but familiar in a way the forest never was. I turned back once. Nothing. No movement. No figures, just darkness behind me. I didn't wait to understand it. I started walking along the road, not knowing where it would lead, but trusting it more than anything I had just left behind. My legs still felt weak, my breathing uneven, but I kept moving, focused on putting distance between me and that place. Time passed, I don't know how much. Minutes, maybe longer. But eventually, I saw headlights in the distance. A car. I stepped forward, raising my hand slightly, unsure if they would stop, unsure if I even looked like someone worth stopping for. For a second, I thought they might pass me, but they didn't. The car slowed, then stopped a few feet ahead. I approached carefully, my voice still unsteady as I asked for help. I didn't explain everything. I couldn't. Not yet. I just needed to get away, and I did. The ride back was quiet. Not the same kind of silence as before, but something calmer. Safer. I stared out the window, watching the darkness pass by again, but this time it didn't feel like it was closing in on me. It felt like I had made it out, but escaping the forest didn't mean escaping what led me there. That realization settled in slowly, heavier than the fear I had just felt, because the truth was, none of this started in the forest. It started long before that. With every moment I ignored how I felt. Every time I stayed quiet instead of speaking up. Every time I accepted less than I deserved and convinced myself it was enough. And then I crossed a line, not because I was forced, but because I chose to. That part stayed with me the most, the memory of how easily I let myself be pulled into something I knew was wrong. How quickly I traded my values for attention that didn't even last. By the time I reached home, the fear had faded, but the weight hadn't. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, replaying everything in my head. Not just the forest, but every decision that led up to it. My partner's name showed up on my phone again. I didn't answer, not because I was afraid of them, but because I didn't know who I was in that moment. The person who left that night wasn't the same one who came back, and not in a way I was proud of. I thought I was escaping loneliness. I thought I was finding something I was missing, but all I really did was lose myself for a moment in something that was never real, and standing there at the edge of everything I almost lost, one truth became impossible to ignore. Some mistakes don't just hurt you, they take you somewhere you might not find your way back from. I was lucky that I got out, but not everyone does.